understand, but you just have to deal with it.
just
Like,
have to deal with it.
yeah.
this way towards St Giles.
goes out the balcony. I'm like back
Oh.
at the restaurant.
Yeah.
I know.